Think about this. How many men have wasted years of their lives in relationships that were destined to fail from day one, simply because they ignored the warning signs? They allowed the passion of initial attraction to cloud their reason. They mistook intense chemistry for a foundation of character. And they never stopped to ask the difficult questions about the person they were building a life with. That is how a man's peace is broken. That is how he loses his confidence and his self-respect. But you do not have to repeat their mistakes. The signs are always there, waiting to be recognized by a mind that is trained to observe reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. This guide is an exercise in the Stoic discipline of discernment. It is not about judging a woman's past. The past is an external, beyond our control. However, a person's history forges their habits and reveals their values. It leaves traces in their present behavior. A wise man learns to read those traces. We will walk you through 7 patterns. 7 signs that can reveal a woman's true relationship with intimacy, honesty, and commitment. This is not about paranoia. This is about perception. It is about acquiring the clarity to see the difference between a woman who is ready for a profound partnership and one whose patterns predict a future of instability and pain. Once you understand these, you will never have to waste your time in confusion again. Sign 1. An unnatural comfort with physical closeness. The first sign is one of the most subtle, and for that reason, one of the most dangerous. A woman who has walked through too many doors of intimacy rarely pauses before stepping into another. That hesitation, that delicate, almost imperceptible barrier of modesty you feel from a woman who truly values a new connection, is usually a sign of genuine attraction and respect for the moment. When it is absent, when everything feels too fast, too easy, too familiar, that should make a man of reason pause and look closer. Most women, when they truly value the man in front of them, approach physical closeness with a mixture of nerves and anticipation. It is not fear, it is the natural, beautiful tension that gives intimacy its weight and its meaning. But a woman who has repeated the same scene again and again with many different partners often loses that spark. What used to feel unique now becomes mechanical, almost rehearsed. She may sit too close too soon. Her hand might brush your arm with a practiced ease, as if she has done it 100 times before. Her conversations about intimacy may sound strangely technical, like she is describing a procedure rather than a deeply personal moment. To the untrained man, this can look like confidence. He might even flatter himself thinking, "She must be so comfortable with me already." But a Stoic understands that true trust, the foundation of real intimacy, does not bloom instantly. It is built in layers, through patience, through observation of character, and through gradual, mutual vulnerability. When a woman skips that entire process and moves directly to a state of high physical comfort, it is often not a sign of accelerated romance. It is a sign of repetition. You are not necessarily experiencing something rare and special. You may be watching a pattern she has already lived out many times before. This matters, because that missing pause is not just about shyness. It is about emotional weight. When a woman no longer carries that sense of novelty and significance into the act of closeness, she is telling you silently that intimacy for her may have been stripped of its deeper, exclusive meaning. What should be a sacred exchange has been downgraded into a casual routine. Ask yourself, does she treat physical contact as a casual, everyday gesture, or does she let it build with a genuine sense of anticipation? If it feels transactional, if it feels like she is flipping through a well-worn script, then you may not be the main character. You may just be another scene in a long and ongoing sequence. The man who misreads this sign often invests his heart into someone who can never meet him with equal depth. He confuses quick physical access with a strong emotional connection. Sign 2. Emotional walls are always up. The second sign is a profound contradiction that a man must learn to see. You can touch her hand, you can kiss her lips, but you can never seem to get past the invisible, impenetrable wall around her heart. A woman who has lived through too many short, disposable connections often learns to protect herself. She does this by fundamentally separating physical closeness from emotional depth. To you, it may feel like a confusing paradox. She lets you into her bed, but when you try to reach for her soul, the door remains firmly locked. This is not random. It is a defense mechanism, a piece of armor forged in the fires of past disappointments. It is the result of repetition of moments where she perhaps gave too much emotionally, felt the sting of loss, and then made a subconscious vow to never fully expose her core self again. Over time, that defense becomes second nature. She will smile, she will laugh, and she will even seem affectionate. But something in her energy will always feel withheld. You might share a story about your fears, your ambitions, or your pain, and her response will be polite but shallow. She will nod and listen, but she will never give back that same level of genuine vulnerability. That imbalance will eventually drain you. A relationship grows when two people are willing to risk emotional exposure together. But when she has trained herself to avoid that risk at all costs, you become the only one carrying the full weight of the intimacy. In moments of conflict, this emotional wall becomes even clearer. Instead of working through problems with you, she will dodge them. She might change the subject, crack a joke, or simply walk away. It looks like she is just avoiding a fight, but the truth is harsher. She is avoiding a genuine connection. And here is the hidden danger for you. Her distance is not about you. It is not because of something you did wrong. It is a habit carved from her past. Each unfinished relationship, each casual encounter, may have left behind a scar that now functions as armor. The more scars, the thicker the armor. By the time you meet her, she may be so practiced at emotional withdrawal that you never truly get a chance to see who she is behind the fortifications. For a man who is seeking something real, this creates an exhausting imbalance. You invest your emotional energy. You open up. You try to build trust. But her response never matches yours in depth or authenticity. The result is frustration, doubt, and eventually, the erosion of your own confidence. The lesson here is simple, but critical. Do not ignore emotional distance just because physical closeness feels good. One without the other is a trap. If she is quick to touch, but slow to reveal her true self, you are not in a relationship. You are in a performance. And that performance will end the moment she decides to exit the stage. Sign 3: a disproportionate male social circle. Now, let us look outward, at the world she has built around herself. A woman's social circle is never random. It is a direct reflection of where she seeks her validation and where she invests her energy. When you see a woman with an unusually large number of active, orbiting male friends, it is not just a social quirk, it is a window into her patterns. To the untrained man, this may look harmless. She just gets along better with guys. You might tell yourself, wanting to appear secure. But a man of reason must ask the follow-up question: why? Why does she avoid building deep, lasting, platonic friendships with other women, the very people who would demand emotional reciprocity and accountability? Instead, she often chooses the easier path, keeping a collection of men orbiting around her, each one offering a steady stream of attention, each one providing a dose of validation, each one quietly competing for her focus. Her phone lights up constantly with different names, but the tone of the conversations is often consistent admiration, banter, and subtle flirtation disguised as friendship. For many of these men, friendship is only the cover story. Some may have been closer to her in the past than they admit. Others are simply waiting for their chance in the future. Here is what you need to understand from a strategic perspective. This constant male validation becomes her safety net. It reassures her. It props up her self-image. And it keeps her from ever having to feel the sting of being truly alone. If her relationship with you ends, she does not have to sit in the silence and reflect on what went wrong. She already has an army of men waiting to fill the gap. That is not security. That is a dependency on external approval. The danger for you is obvious. In a real partnership, exclusivity is not just about physical fidelity. It is about emotional focus. A woman who is constantly leaning on the attention of a dozen other men is dividing her energy. She can never give you the full weight of her emotional commitment, because a significant part of her identity is tied to the crowd of admirers she keeps in the background. You are not her anchor. You are just her current priority. A balanced social life, of course, includes both men and women. But a life that is tilted heavily and consistently toward constant male companionship is not a sign of balance. It is a red flag. It tells you that she has trained herself to survive on the shallow currency of external approval, not on the deep, intrinsic value of a genuine connection. Remember this: the woman who surrounds herself with an army of men is not just being friendly. She has likely built her identity around being desired. And when someone's worth depends on endless validation, no single relationship will ever be enough. Principle 4: closeness is used as a currency. Not every gesture of affection is a genuine expression of a feeling. Some women, after enough experience in the world of dating, learn that physical closeness is not just about attraction. It can be used as a powerful bargaining chip. Over time, she may have discovered that a well-timed touch or a moment of affection can bend a man's decisions, soften his resistance, and even silence his questions. And once that lesson is learned and practiced, intimacy can transform from an act of connection into an act of control. Picture this: the night before she needs to ask for something significant, a favor, money, your forgiveness for a mistake. She is unusually sweet, affectionate, and attentive. It feels special, almost too good to be true. But then you start to notice a pattern. The timing of her warmth is never random. It almost always precedes a request. And when she is displeased with you, or when you have set a boundary she does not like, the switch flips. She withdraws. She goes cold. She leaves you wondering what you did wrong until you give in, just to restore the harmony and earn her warmth back. That is not love, that is negotiation. The psychology here is brutal. From a young age, many women are aware of the power their presence carries. But repetition sharpens that awareness into a conscious strategy. Instead of closeness being a gift, it becomes leverage. She learns that a man, especially one who craves peace and affection, will often adjust his behavior to get it. She can punish by withholding it and reward by giving it. And in doing so, she turns the entire relationship into a subtle power game. This is dangerous because it poisons your own perception. You start to question whether her affection is genuine or calculated. Every touch, every kiss, every intimate moment becomes suspect in your mind. You can never fully relax because you are never sure if it is about her desire for you or her desire for something from you. That doubt erodes trust, and when trust dies, the relationship rots from the inside out. Once intimacy is used as a currency, the relationship has already shifted into a state of imbalance. You are no longer her equal partner. You are a subject in her personal economy of rewards and punishments. And in that economy, she almost always wins, because she controls the one thing you deeply crave: closeness. For a man who values himself, this is a red line. Because no matter how attractive she is, a woman who weaponizes affection will never be able to give you a love that is free and genuine. She is too invested in playing the game. This discernment between genuine connection and sophisticated manipulation is a vital skill. In the comments, share a time you realized someone's understanding of you was more of a strategy than a genuine connection. What was the sign that made you see the truth? Your experience can sharpen the perception of us all. Principle 5: a surgical ability to read the male mind. Some women, through extensive practice, develop a skill so sharp it can feel almost supernatural. They can read a man's emotions, detect his insecurities, and exploit his instincts with surgical precision. At first glance, this can look and feel like profound empathy. She seems to understand you better than anyone ever has. She knows exactly when to compliment you, exactly when to appear vulnerable, and even exactly when to pull away to make you chase harder. But a man of reason must learn to distinguish between a rare, genuine connection and a craft that has been perfected through repetition. Think about how any skill is built. You do not become fluent in a language by accident. You practice, you fail, you correct, and you refine over time. The same is true here. Through countless experiences with different men, she may have learned which words melt a man's defenses, which silences create the most tension, and which gestures trigger his protective instinct. To you, it feels natural and magical. To her, it is strategy. Here is how it plays out. She notices your insecurities about your career, your appearance, or your past. At the exact moment you are doubting yourself, she delivers the perfect compliment. Not to truly uplift you, but to make you dependent on her approval. Later, when she needs something, that timed validation becomes the hook that pulls you into compliance. It is not love, it is conditioning. The brilliance of this tactic lies in how invisible it feels. A man wrapped in this dynamic does not see manipulation. He sees a soulmate. He tells himself, she just gets me. Meanwhile, she is running a playbook that she has rehearsed on others. You are not the first to be disarmed by her flawless timing, and you will not be the last. The cruel twist is that even when you start to suspect the game, breaking free is not easy, because she targets your ego. Every man wants to feel special, understood, and admired. When she delivers these feelings in carefully measured doses, you can become hooked. It feels too good to walk away, even when you sense the strings attached. This level of manipulation is dangerous because it is sophisticated. It does not rely on open demands. Instead, it blends tenderness with control so seamlessly that you begin to doubt your own judgment. The lesson is clear. If her ability to read you feels too perfect, if her timing is always flawless, pause and ask yourself whether this is a genuine connection or a masterful calculation. Principle 6: a casual disregard for the past now. Pay close attention to how she talks about her own history. For most women, the past, especially regarding intimacy, carries a certain weight. Even if they do not share every detail, there is usually a sense of reservation, a quiet recognition that these moments were private, selective, and significant. But a woman with a long and varied trail of short connections often treats her past like a casual story. There is no hesitation, no filter, and sometimes even a sense of pride. She might laugh as she recounts previous relationships. She might casually describe intimate experiences, as if she were talking about a weekend trip. She may frame it all as something positive, a learning experience, or part of figuring myself out. To an untrained ear, this can sound like honesty, freedom, or modern openness. But underneath, it signals something else entirely. Intimacy has lost its exclusivity. It has been devalued. Think about what that means for you. If she does not hold her own past with a sense of gravity, then what makes her connection with you any different? If the previous chapters of her romantic life were just casual, disposable episodes, how can you be sure that your story with her will be treated as anything more? The man who ignores this sign risks investing his heart into someone who no longer views commitment as something rare or sacred. When you question her about it, notice her reaction. Instead of acknowledging the weight of the past, she might become defensive, flipping the script by calling you insecure, judgmental, or outdated. That response does not come from strength. It comes from deflection. It is a way of avoiding accountability while normalizing a behavior that erodes long-term trust. The psychology here is simple. When repetition strips away the deep emotional meaning of intimacy, what is left is a narrative that redefines the past as harmless. By reframing it as mere experience, she shields herself from judgment, but she also reveals her core value system. For a high-value man, this is not about moralizing or shaming. It is a rational risk assessment. If she treats her intimate past with indifference, then the concept of exclusivity in the present loses its power. You cannot build a fortress of trust on a foundation that has already been weakened by casualness. The way she handles her past is a blueprint for how she will likely handle the bond you are trying to build. Prink 7: a history of short, repetitive relationships. Finally, a Stoic understands that patterns do not lie. When you look at a person's history, you are not just seeing what happened. You are seeing how they operate. And a woman with a long trail of short, intense, and repetitive relationships is showing you more than just a series of failed attempts at love. She is revealing a cycle that has become her norm. Here is how this pattern usually looks. Things move very fast. The connection feels electric at the beginning. Within a few days or weeks, it seems like she is all in. Constant communication, strong affection. Talk about the future. You are swept up in the rush, believing you have found something rare. But then, just as quickly as it started, it begins to unravel. The initial spark fades, the distance grows. And before you can even process what is happening, she is gone. Often, she is already emotionally, if not physically, involved with someone new before the dust from your connection has even settled. This is not a coincidence. It is conditioning. Repeated cycles of short-term, high-intensity involvement train her brain to thrive on novelty rather than depth. The adrenaline rush of a new connection gives her the emotional high she craves. But when that initial excitement inevitably levels out, when the relationship requires real effort, patience, and true emotional investment, she checks out. It is not that she cannot love. It is that her character has not been trained to sustain it. For the man caught in this cycle, the damage is real. You are left wondering what you did wrong, questioning yourself, when in reality, the script was written long before you ever entered the scene. You were simply the next chapter in a book that does not have room for long stories. The deeper danger is that when relationships overlap, when one ends and another begins almost instantly, she robs herself of the critical space for reflection needed to grow. There are no lessons learned, no real healing, just constant motion. And a life built on constant motion can never settle into stability. The psychology here is clear. Without the space to process pain or confront her own patterns, she is doomed to repeat them. And if you ignore the clear evidence of her history, you will end up as another entry in her long list of quick highs and abrupt exits. So ask yourself, are you willing to be a temporary thrill? Or are you looking for something that will last? Because if her history is a string of brief, bright flames, the odds are overwhelmingly high that you will be next. Do not dismiss her patterns as bad luck. They are warnings. Now you have seen them, 7 signs that speak louder than any words. They are not just quirks or habits. They are patterns etched into a person's character by repetition, by choices, and by history. And if you know how to read them, you will see the truth long before the mask ever has a chance to slip. Understand this. This is not about judging a woman. Every person has a past. But for a man who values his time, his energy, and his future, the past is not irrelevant. It is predictive. It tells you what you can rationally expect tomorrow based on the evidence of yesterday. To ignore it is to choose to pay the price with your own emotions, your peace, and your dignity. So now the choice is in front of you. You can close your eyes, allow the passion of attraction to blind you, and repeat the same cycle of disappointment. Or you can open them wide, recognize the patterns for what they are, and decide that you will no longer build your future on unstable ground. The difference between the men who keep losing and the men who rise above is not luck. It is awareness. So here is what I want from you now. If these signs opened your eyes, go to the comments and write, "I will see the signs." That simple sentence is your declaration that you refuse to remain blind. Share this with a man who needs to hear it, because silence only keeps him vulnerable. If you are ready to keep sharpening your perception, like this video and subscribe to the Stoic Manhood Guide. This journey is about reclaiming your power, and it starts the moment you stop ignoring the truth.